So, for a long time, I used to say, I'm fine, I'm good. Because it was so easy to not have to talk about the hard things when I'd say that. No one ever questions, fine, you are? And a lot of people viewed me as a badass, hard ass. I got that a lot from a boss a couple years ago that you're a hard ass. And I never really self reflected for a long time on why I put up this wall of myself, of wanting people to view me as that. And it was a coping mechanism to, again, not be able to have to talk about the hard things, not being able to sit in your emotions. And what this really led me to of not talking about hard things, not doing the things for myself to be emotional, to be vulnerable, led me to a lot of anger, led me to a lot of hurt, a lot of negative ways that I coped in my life with doing the whole I'm going to drink and mask my pain for this time because I don't want to talk about it. And no one wants to talk about hard shit. They just don't. Because when we talk about how we're truly feeling, it gives an opportunity for someone to potentially leave you, for someone to say something that you don't want to hear, right? And for a long time, I didn't want to do that because I didn't want to experience the loss of someone in my life at that time, the thing that that person might say that might hurt my feelings. And what I needed to do was talk about it. And putting up this wall and coping the way I did for, the last 8 years really didn't help. I hurt so bad that when I did drink, the anger came out, the resentment came out. And growing up in childhood, I went through a lot, and most people don't know what I went through. And my dad and my stepmom didn't know what was going on in my household. They had no idea because why would I talk about that? And if I did, that was going to remove me from that situation and I was going to hurt my mom's feelings if I shared what was actually happening. And what was actually happening in that household was my stepdad was verbally abusive to me, calling me the C word, calling me names that a 15, a 16, a 17, an 18-year-old should never have to experience. And I struggled because I couldn't talk about how I felt because my mom was a person that didn't want to talk about the hard things. Instead, what we did in our house was, let's go shopping, honey. Let's go do this instead of, hey, are you okay? Hey, what do you want to talk about? Because I know that was difficult for you, what we just experienced. Because it was typically my mom and I that would get talked to a certain way. And my brothers that were in that household, they did have their own experiences. But when he was so far gone, it was intense. And I would speak up and get in front of him and tell him, you will not talk to my mom that way, and you will not talk to me that way. And I wanted so bad to be seen and be heard, to be validated by my mom. I wanted her to stick up for me. I wanted her to do things that a mom should do, protect their child. And she didn't. She did not do any of that. And, it really, the mindset that I had of how am I going to get out of this? How am I going to be able to grow into the person I wanted to become? And I was the soccer star. I was the person in the family that everybody talked about how, you're so good at sports and you can go far with it. And I got this thought in my head that if I work my ass off and I bust in school and I bust at my sport, I'm going to get me out of this toxic. I'm going to go far with it because I have a gift. And I talked about this in therapy. And yes, I'm in therapy now. I'm very proud of that. And before, I was never going to show my weakness because that's a thought in society that if we do that, we're weak. And most of my family on one side didn't do it. They didn't do the hard things. So I didn't do it either until this last year. And when I had this thought process, if I go to school at Mizzou in Missouri, I can remove myself from that situation. And when I talked about this with my therapist, that's not the case, because when I moved across country, what happened is that stuff still followed me. My coping mechanisms of put this wall up, don't let anybody know that you're hurting inside, do the things that you need to do to get by, to survive, because that was how I learned. That was what was modeled in my home. So of course it stuck with me when I went to college. And I'd close people out. I'd close them out so fast. I would get defensive. Nah, we ain't talking about it. I would get pissed. I would get angry. Wouldn't talk to you for whatever days it was. And my dad can testify to this because he said it to me. He's like, you didn't want to talk about it. And I didn't. Like, why would I tell you how I feel? Because then we got to actually feel it. And we didn't when I was a kid. I didn't do that with my mom's household. So it carried for a long time in how I held myself. And I didn't deal with it in the right way because, again, I was taught this. And it continued throughout my relationships that I had when I was dating. And then, when I met my now wife, it was very much in our relationship because I wasn't taking care of me. I wasn't taking responsibility for my actions. In a job that I was in, I would come home in complete anger and resentment and so many things, and she would get to have that in our house because I didn't know how to cope. I didn't know how to deal. So she was the person that had this, and it wasn't fair, it wasn't right. And I needed to do the things that was hard, to sit in it and take action and know that this is how I have to overcome this, is that I have to do the work. I have to be willing to change. And I wasn't for a long time. I wanted to blame every single person, but look in the freaking mirror and say, girl, you the problem. You are the reason that you are stuck and you are not changing. Because it goes back to when I was a kid. My mom did the same thing. We blame everybody else, but we don't look in the mirror and talk about, how can I make this better? That continued so much into my teaching job and how I did all of these things at this place where we used to live, years ago. And I coped with alcohol. I masked that pain that I was experiencing of not being seen, not being heard. And I was never going to fit. I was never going to fit in that small town. It just wasn't going to happen. But I couldn't get in with that. I couldn't get that across my mindset. Like, dude, you got to leave this place because it's not going to work. And I wanted so bad to fit in. I had like an experience that it really opened my eyes to where we got to get out. We left, went to another town, and experienced similar things as far as just being a out openly gay woman, married, and same thing, still not taking ownership, not taking action for how I can respond, how I can do the things, instead blaming the environment and blaming the people that are not willing to step up. I had to make the decision on how I wanted to respond, and I wasn't ready to look myself in the mirror and be like, what do I need to do? And this year, I had another experience with family. And it became so heavy that it was weighing on my mental health. And again, I didn't talk about hard things, but I'm talking to you right now because I know my story can help you. I tried to do it on my own. I thought if I could do this on my own, I'm going to be seen as strong, badass. But what I needed to come to conclusion was that I needed to get the help to work through this and support and guidance to be able to grow. And the thing about growth and change, it's uncomfortable. Pain is gonna be there for a small period of time and then go away. Be there, go for a small period of time. But growth is always changing, and you have to be willing to change with it. You have to be willing to get up and do the hard work. And there was this point where I'm like telling my wife, I gotta make a change. I gotta do something because you matter to me. I want to have a healthy life with you. I want to be healthy. I want to be able to not let this eat me up anymore. I want to be able to grow. I want to be a better version. I don't want to be like my parents, my mom specifically, that doesn't take ownership for their actions, instead blaming people. And I will tell you, it's hurt so much to sit and reflect and be able to say out loud, like, I was the problem. The only person that can change the outcome is you. The only person that can truly make change happen is yourself. And I had to get right with that. I had to sit with it. I had to feel my emotions like I am right now. And when you can do that, and you can see that when you come out on the other side, you're going to be stronger, it feels so good. And if you follow my story, I am not the same person I was 6 months ago. I'm not the same person that I was a year ago. And I'm not the same person 8 years ago. Because growth and change is always happening. And I am here to help as many LGBTQ peeps as possible. Because every day is a struggle. Question your self-worth. Question your identity of like, where do I belong? Where do I fit? And we can do the hard things. But it comes down to you realizing that you have to be the person that makes that decision. The person to wake up every single day and be like, my life matters. I want better for me. I want better for my future. And to continue at that every single day, because it doesn't just happen overnight. It's been a hard process, but I feel so much better in the person that I am now, today, speaking to you. And I am more confident, because I've always had like this confident look, this confidence that people thought. But my confidence is so much stronger because I've done the freaking hard things. I have grown into the person I want to become. And people I am leading and guiding in the same direction. Because guess what? We are stronger together when we do the hard things. And of course, our life matters because we're doing the damn thing.